all-new Yamaha V6 Offshore F350. It's a featherweight knockout, the lightest 350 horsepower outboard on the water, exhilarating boating and incredible control in a powerfully light design. The Yamaha V6 Offshore F350.
Dave Anderson here with the Fisherman magazine. It's July 11th. These are your headlines. First of all, we're hearing about epic striped bass fishing around Block Island right now. Also seeing a surprising number of guys out looking for summertime tog. And lastly, we're seeing a lot of different exotic species across the region. Stay tuned for all that and more on this week's New England Fishing Forecast.
The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
Before we begin, we've got a few news items for you guys, and the first one comes to us from Jenni Ackerman. Here's her latest installment of Open Boat.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Open Boat. Today, I'm gonna give you guys a little rundown on some fluking off the beach tips and tricks. Now, remember how last week for the 4th of July Open Boat, I said did not get sunburn? Well, that's what I did, so that's why I'm filming this one when it's soggy out, because I'm basically vampiric now, but instead of having a thirst for blood, I have a thirst for aloe. But I'm gonna walk you through this because there's a lot of elements that go into fluking, and sometimes if you're not thinking, you're like, what am I doing wrong here? You overthink. So these are some basic things that helped me out when I first started fluking off the beach. First thing, identifying structure. Fluke-like structure or little drop-offs. So if you're fluking on a beach that has a jetty, fish next to that. You can fish on the jetty if you have corkers, or if you have guts to walk on a jetty barefoot like I do sometimes. And you can fluke next to that because they love structure. And a lot of the times, fluke will hang out in a trough close to your feet. So that's another point. When you're bringing your jig back to shore, don't reel it in real quick when it's at your feet. Work it all the way until you hit sand, because they can be sitting in so close. There's been times where the water has been crystal clear. You're basically sight fishing for these fluke. Another tip, always use light tackle. 3,000 size reel, 7 or 8 foot size rod, easy peasy. Now, of course, like I did last week, you have your bait and rig variations. Switch it up based off the day. If it's a little bit more crummy out, cloudy, chartreuse. If it ain't chartreuse, it ain't no use. If it isn't pink, it'll stink. If it isn't white, it isn't right. There's a ton of different colors that you can use, and there's a ton of lingos that go. Every single tackle shop has their lingo for colors, but bring a bunch of different colors to use, and you'll make it work. You'll work up a bite. The biggest thing when it comes to fluke fishing is you want to build up your steps. I love tracking my steps, so when you're fluking off the beach, you want to be constantly walking the beach. So find a spot on the beach, and then if you're not getting a bite, cast a couple times, you're not getting a bite, take a couple steps, either work your way down the beach, whatever direction you choose. So fish for a little bit. If you're not getting any bites, work your way down a little, and then keep working and working until you get into a bite. And a lot of the times, the fluke hang out with a little group. So if you get into one bite, you can get into more fish after that. So stick it out if you get one bite, stick it out in that hole and see if you get any more fluke after that. Now, the retrieval when you're fluke fishing. So you're gonna cast your jig out there. You don't even have to cast it super far. Cast it out there, and what I do is I let it hit the bottom, I jig it, 1, 2, 3. Reel it in half a crank, jig it, 1, 2, 3, reel it in half a crank. And I retrieve that all the way to my feet. I bring it all the way in because I do not want to miss a bite. Now, if you're fluking and you have just, like what I have on, just a bucktail, and you have a grub as your bait, you're using gulp, fish bites, American Bait Works, whatever you're using, those grubs are long, and it takes fluke some time to chew them. So I wait for the 3 count. So if I get 1 tap, that's that fluke testing out that grub. Another tap, it's working its way up. That 3rd tap is by the time that fluke gets its mouth to the hook. And what I like to do after that 3rd tap is I'll lift my rod tip up just a little bit, and when I feel that weight, that's when I set the hook. So that's when you know you have that fluke on, is when you feel that heavy weight. Now, fighting a fluke off the surf, it's just like any other species of fighting a fish off the surf. Try your best to time the wave to land this fish. They're a little bit easier because they're flatties, so you're basically reeling in a frisbee off the beach. But the best thing you could do is time a wave and just slide your rod across like that, and you're gonna bring it up on the beach. Handling them, just grab them behind their gills. Try not to squeeze them. These poor guys, they're literally so flat, so it is hard to handle them. But if you squeeze them so hard, all their organs are right in that central area where there's a lot of meat to grab. So try to gently, I use like 3 fingers. I use my thumb and these 2 fingers, and I grab them like this, barely pinching them to hold them up. Even some of the bigger ones, if you get yourself a doormat, you can pinch them like that and even grab them down by the tail. That's when you know you can wipe your feet on that fluke because you got yourself a doormat. Now, next week, the sun is gonna be out. We still have cold water from an upswell, but I'm taking you guys fluking with me. We're gonna get some killies and we're gonna fluke some back bay, some river spots by me, and we're gonna get in some fish. It's gonna be straight up fishing. We're gonna humble ourselves here. It's not gonna be glitz and glamour of hookup after hookup after hookup. It's gonna be fishing, and who knows? Maybe I'm gonna get snagged, maybe I'm gonna catch some fish, but I'm taking you guys with me, and I'll catch you on next week's Open Boat.
August 24th and 25th on Long Island Sound. WICC Surfside Hotel Greatest Bluefish Tournament on Earth. $25,000 for the heaviest catch, plus additional prizes equaling $40,000. Sign up now at bluefishtournament.com.
Next thing is next week's report video will come to you live from Orlando, Florida, as the entire editorial and sales staff of the Fisherman magazine will be at ICAST. So you're probably going to see me sweating a little bit down there in that Florida heat, but we're still going to bring you the best reports around. So stay tuned and check out some of the views from ICAST. Last thing, of course, is the giveaway, which is ongoing. We're going to give away a flat glide needlefish made by me in a sort of chartreuse over white color. And you know, we've got a good race going. We got some really good photos this time around. This one's going to wrap up on July 26th, so you got just about 2 weeks to impress me, and we will announce the winner then. So basically, all you got to do is take a photo of you holding your fish, send it in to me at danderson@thefisherman.com, or text it to the number on the screen. Give me the pertinent details like your name, where the fish was caught, size of the fish, things like that. We'll get you in the report, get you in the magazine, and we'll get you in the contest. And who knows, maybe you'll win.
And now the Dream Boat Fishing Challenge entries for the week. We had 2 bluefish entries this week. New England subscriber Scott Waterman with his second entry on the board with his chopper at 16.10 pounds, taking top spot in the bluefish category. And then there's Long Island subscriber Brian Zembreski, also with his second entry, taking second place with his bluefish at 15.61 pounds. In the porgy category, we have Long Island subscriber John Bertondi taking first place with his porgy weighing in at 3.41 pounds. New Jersey subscriber Randy Siprich places second in the fluke category with his entry coming in at 13 pounds. The leaderboard looks like this. Scott Waterman has 17 points in first. Anthony Savino is tied for first with 17 points. And Brian Zembreski with 11 points. Just a reminder, for your chance to win the grand prize Steigercraft powered by Yamaha and other great prizes, you need to be a subscriber to the magazine and use the 2024 entry form filled out completely. I repeat, filled out completely. Available at thefisherman.com/contests. It's been a quiet few weeks in the Coastal Kayak Clash with just this entry by Gregory Vergarere with his 15.5-inch porgy. Bob Wagner and Justin Oser are still stuck in a virtual tie at the top with 9 points apiece. Mike Radzewski is in third, sitting well within striking distance with 6 points. For all the details and how to enter, visit thefisherman.com/contests.
Moving over to the reports now, we'll start things off up in Maine, where striped bass fishing continues to really impress. It really is one of the places we see the best summertime striped bass fishing we see anywhere in New England. And a lot of that has to do with just how much cooler the water temps are up there. It kind of gives us an extension of that springtime style fishing well into the summer up there in down East Maine. And, so what we were seeing in, Narragansett, Rhode Island, or along the Long Island Sound coast 2 months ago is still going on up in Maine. So, excuse me. We're seeing good numbers of stripers in the lower rivers, and we're seeing them all along the beaches as well. A lot of solid sized fish too. Fish in the, in the 20 pound up to, even close to 30 pound class, probably a few even much bigger than that. A lot of guys fishing live bait up there, whether they're fishing live eels or live harbor pollock or live max or live bunker. But the guys that are throwing soft plastics and plugs are getting fish as well. And if you're a surf fisherman, you don't want to forget your darters up there because of those giant tides. You got a lot of current, even on the off moon tides. You're still gonna have lots of current. It's prime darter territory, so you definitely want to go up there and check that out. As we drop down into New Hampshire, we got a report this week from Laura Maloney. This is a 48-inch striper she caught off Hampton Beach. Looks like it's pushing close to 40 pounds, I'd say there. And that's sort of indicative of the type of fishing we're seeing really from Maine all the way down through Boston area. Just a lot of really nice striped bass coming off the beaches and from the boat guys up in that area. This is the time of year. I mean, the best striped bass fishing I've seen in my life happened up on the North Shore many years ago during the summertime. So definitely, if you're a hardcore striper guy, you want to put some time in and keep your eye on the North Shore area. And while we're on the subject of the North Shore, let's check in now with James Jewkes.
Well, it's Tuesday evening. Still 85 degrees up here on Plum Island. Man, is it hot. And the greenheads are insane. Anyways, right into the reports. I didn't hear anything from the freshwater guys, although I did see a couple of guys post pictures of pike. So obviously they're still going on. As far as the stripe is concerned, decent reports from north of me into New Hampshire and a little south of me as well. The commercial guys were out off of Gloucester today, probably 100 boats. So obviously there was fish over there. Don't blame those guys. They follow the rules as best they can. But the surf guys from New Hampshire down through Gloucester, fish have been okay. Myself, up on Plum Island, I've had fish to 34 pounds. Problem is I haven't found any fish under 36 inches in quite a while, so that tells you about the fishery. But if you get out there and do your work around the tides that you want, can be rewarding. I've been fishing eels, redfins, soft plastics, and I've had fish on all of them. So get out and get them. They're out there. Not many, but they're out there, and they're good. All right, Dave, have fun.
For more than 20 years, anglers everywhere have come to know one thing, that nothing says no to fish bites.
Dropping down into the Boston Harbor area, I've seen quite a few guys getting some nice fish on the yaks out there. Flutter spoons seem to be crushing it right now, which should tell you something. There's definitely some bunker in the area. And seeing a lot of nice sized fish up there. I haven't seen anything monstrous. I'm sure there are some fish in the area that would qualify, but most of these fish are more like 35 to 42, 43 inches. Solid fish, great bite, and a lot of bait in the area. And that's going to extend from there all the way down along the Massachusetts coast right to the canal. There's just all these little spots, whether you're in the boat or on the shoreline. There's lots of good opportunity right now with lots of nice sized striped bass. Something I forgot to mention while we were up in New Hampshire and Maine is that the haddock fishing has been really good, out in 200, 250 feet of water right now. So that's another thing you can get in on. And Jeffrey's Ledge is starting to see some pushes of tuna as well. So lots of opportunities along this northern stretch of our coverage area. Moving inland for a minute, topwater largemouth bass action has been great. Guys throwing frogs around the lily pads like we got right here, or throwing whopper ploppers, you know, into darkness at the end of the day. A lot of nice fish being caught, and just good numbers of fish, and just a really fun way to catch fish. So that's something that you can do. It's also a great way to get your kids involved, so don't forget about that. Hopping out onto the Cape now, freshwater stuff, same thing. I've been hearing about some good white perch action out on the Cape, in addition to the largemouth bass activity. But the main thing that people are focused on right now on the Cape is striped bass. And there's 2 zones where we're really seeing some great fishing right now. The first one is Billingsgate Shoal. It's been some great topwater action at first light out there, guys throwing spooks and things like that. And then as the sun gets higher in the sky, that transitions to snap and wire. And great opportunity to get some really nice fish up there. So that's definitely a place you want to focus on. And then jump across the Cape over to Monomoy and out as far as Handkerchief Shoal. There's tons of squid in the rips right now, which is fueling an even better striped bass bite than we've been seeing over the last few weeks. And we're seeing some good sized fish now too. We're seeing, I figure these fish are averaging like 36 to 45 inches. So that's definitely a fun fighting size fish, and good numbers of fish. Soft plastics have been doing really well, top waters are doing really well, and the pink SP minnow has been crushing it out there as well. So anything in white or pink seems to really be getting it done, or maybe an amber color as well would do it. Jumping back out toward the outer beaches, the beaches have been on the slower side this week. Really the winds haven't been super favorable, and you know, guys are getting fish. They're just, you know, having to really, they're really pounding the sand to find them. So the pods of fish seem to be quite isolated. On the tuna end of the string here, and we had just huge numbers, or at least good numbers, of wreck-sized fish out east of Chatham for a couple weeks there, and those fish seem to have moved north now. And depending on who you talk to, some guys are saying that they've kind of like disappeared. So, you know, there's a couple tears welling up in the eyes of the tuna faithful out there, but we are seeing more giants this week, so the commercial guys are getting in on that. And south of the islands seems to be a little bit more activity, and most of these fish are being caught on the troll with darker colors. So, you know, something in black, red and black, purple and black, you know, on and on from there. The other thing that's working though is like the stick baits from Siren Lures, or even the Ronzi. The Ronzi's been killing it as well. But we are in a little bit of a lull, and hopefully we're going to see things ramp back up here with the next push of bait. So just keep your eye on that offshore fishing for now. Moving up into Nantucket Sound, I didn't hear about a lot of guys fishing Nantucket Shoal this week. I think with the few calm days we had, a lot of guys went tuna fishing, so we didn't hear a whole lot from the shoals. But the fluke fishing inside Nantucket Sound is good for action. It's just not great for size. Guys are weeding through tons and tons of little like 12 and 13-inch shorts and finding the very occasional keeper. Better option for, you know, finding something to take home for the table is to do some sea bass fishing out there. Better action overall, and a better chance for putting together a limit, and you might get some scup to put into the limit as well. Striped bass action along the Vineyard has been okay. Seems like mostly smaller fish, but you know, a few slots and a few over slots in the mix. Seen some better fish coming from Cuddy Hunk. Saw a friend of mine had a nice fish from the surf in midday out there this week, which is pretty cool. So it kind of gives you, a little view into what might be possible around the Elizabeths. Cutting through into Buzzards Bay. The eastern half of Buzzards Bay has been tough for bottom fishing. Guys are still doing okay, just fishing really deep water, but the bite just isn't as widespread as it has been. As you head further west, it's going to get better. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Getting up toward the canal, a lot of what I heard from the canal wasn't all that great, but we're going to check in with East End Eddie here and hear if his contacts did better than mine. Here he is.
Hi Dave, I've been casting into the west ebb tide here this morning, the Cape Cod Canal. It's the tail end. It'll be slack soon, and then followed by an east tide that hopefully will bring in some stripers from Buzzards Bay. Really foggy here this morning. I can't even see my lower landing. I can hear it, but I just heard a boat go by actually. There was a boat going the other way towards the east end a few minutes ago, and I just wanted to be careful not to cast into a fishing boat that was heading for Stellwagen Bank or someplace else. So things have been pretty slow here in the canal up until recently. John Morgan saved us by catching some slots with his trusty his Blue Adam striper swiper that he's been throwing for about 20 years. I'm very familiar with the Adam Company because Bob Pond started that company in Attleboro, and I grew up in Attleboro. Actually, my wife says I didn't grow up at all, but that's a different story. So then some more slots were caught by Bloodhound Steve Colleran and Paulie the Painter Gravina. Paulie the Painter was using his white custom-made paddle tail. He makes laws himself. He's a real craftsman and very talented guy. So he was throwing a jig, a white paddle tail, and Bloodhound Steve was using his pink Al Gags paddle tail that he uses almost exclusively. Bloodhound Steve is one of the most...
And then heading west out into Buzzards Bay, it's been some better striped bass this week. We're seeing some larger fish. I wouldn't call them big, but just a better class of fish. Over the last couple weeks, they seem to be a little bit smaller. This week, we're seeing fish that are getting up close to 40 inches again, which is nice to see. So a new push of fish moving into that area. Fluking has been okay. Sort of the same thing we're seeing in Nantucket Sound, where there's a lot more short fish than there are keeper-sized fish, but they are around for the guys who don't mind putting in the time. And sea bass still kicking it pretty hard. Very good fishing out there from Westport all the way out to the Elizabeths and then heading over toward Nomans. And you even got an opportunity for some summertime tog out there as well. So good fishing in western half of Buzzards Bay, and that's what I have for you guys in Massachusetts this week. Moving over to Rhode Island now, we're going to check in first with TJ Kopecky.
Thanks, Dave. Hey guys, nice to be back. Hope everybody had a nice 4th of July weekend, and leading into the summer doldrums right now. Some of the bay temperatures are 75 degrees that we marked this weekend. But I got to tell you, it didn't stop the fishing or the bass biting. We got plenty of scup, sea bass, and fluke out in the mouth of the Sakonnet River in Mount Hope Bay, just right off of Common Fence Point. A couple of areas I fish in there. We did really well. We got sea bass up to 18 inches in there, so that's some pretty good sea bass. We also got some nice fluke. I got a 22-inch fluke out of there in the same day. Had another outing a little further out in the bay, out towards the Hog Island Lighthouse. From there, all the way out past Dyer Island, it is loaded with adult bunker, and there are some bass on them if you're out there in a boat. And they've been there for the last 2 weeks. We've been out there 2 times, 2 separate weekends, and that bait has not moved. It's pretty much stationary in that area right there, feeding. So there, you can get out there with a snagger, you can get out there with a cast net, you can get some live bunker, and you can live line some bunker out there for some good sized bass up to in the mid 30 range. They're not huge inside, just because of the water that is warm. There are some fluke around some of those ledges too, around the east end of Prudence Island, getting over towards Bristol Harbor. So if you're in there, up to the Warren and Barrington rivers, things have actually been a little slow, but there are a lot of small bass in there, and you got to use a 3-inch or a 4-inch. Paddle tails have been working good for me. So haven't seen any bluefish yet, and I'm hoping that this week we get a report of some. But I think everything's kind of panning out. I did see a lot of peanut bunker when I fished up in the Coles River, and I got to tell you, it's all getting back out into the bay now. So hopefully we get a nice bluefish bite this year, and that's all I got from the East Bay, and we'll catch up with you guys next week. Tight lines.
Now, the main thing that everyone seems to be talking about this week is the striped bass fishing out around Block Island. In fact, I think Jeff Sullivan is not going to have a report this week because he's too tired from making some trips out there. But I talked to several guys, and that that fishery went from good to amazing over the past 7 days, which isn't a huge surprise. We had the new moon on the 5th, and you know, typically we see these movements of fish come in on the moon, and that's what happened this time. So I heard of several 40 to 50 pound fish coming out of there, and the numbers of fish from 30 to 40 pounds or like 30 to low 40 pound class have really skyrocketed. Seems like most of these fish are being caught on fake eels at this point. So, you know, the GT eels, or the ones made by Game On, or the ones made by Zinger, or, you know, whatever one your favorite is, maybe the Algags one. There's a lot of different options at this point, but they're all crushing it. Guys are throwing them on like 1.5 to 2.5 ounce jig heads and finding some really nice fish out there. Heading back toward home, we're also seeing a lot of bigger fish, especially in the Jamestown and Newport area. These fish aren't quite the dinosaurs that they're seeing at Block Island, but still a lot of nice fish in the 40 to 45 inch class. A lot of these fish are being caught from kayaks, but I talked to Coral, I talked to Captain Connor from Tall Tales Charters, and all of these guys are getting in on, or guys and gals, are getting in on this fishing, and the bite has been really, really good. A lot of guys doing it trolling the tube and worm, but you can do it on the dock, you can do it with live eels, you can do it with flutter spoons when you got the right bait around. There's just good numbers of fish. Also, I've been hearing about a lot of guys doing it off the boats with big paddle tails, especially the no live bait needed ones, so don't miss out on that. Heading down toward Narragansett, let's check in now with Captain John Lee from JL Charters.
We've had quite a few bottom fishing trips this week, often 2 a day. Some of the trips have been quite good with fluke and sea bass. Other trips have been a grind. So it's still a funky start to the bottom fish fishing where I go. I'm sure someone's getting them somewhere, that's always the case. But the guys I talk to, the guys I fish around, and they're good fishermen, are all, it's a grind. You get them, you'll get them on, so the flood has been better than the ebb, but then one day the flood will be off and the ebb will be better. Anyway, we just keep grinding it out. We had some nice fluke today, up in 31 feet. Yesterday we had fluke in 55 feet. I had better sea bass at the island today, a bunch of big jumbos, hump heads, and some fluke over there. I haven't really been striper fishing much, but I have some trips coming up this week. See you next time.
Heading back out toward Block Island, we are seeing good bottom fishing out in that region as well. The East Grounds has got good numbers of sea bass. We're starting to see more fluke moving in, but it still really hasn't come into its own out there as far as I've seen or heard. Coming closer to the South County beaches now, fluke fishing's been tougher for the last 2 weeks now. It was pretty good there for like the last 2 weeks of June, and then it's kind of tapered off in the following 2 weeks. So guys are still getting them. It's just a lot more smaller fish. It's kind of the same story across the region. There's a lot more shorts than there are keepers right now. But some guys are still getting some decent ones. You just got to grind it out. And once again, a better option is to fish the wrecks and the ledges for sea bass where the bite's been good and you also have the opportunity to get some big scup. Up along the beaches, we have seen some decent-sized striped bass coming out of there day and night from the breachways and from the points. The bigger fish on the average, though, are coming after dark on live eels, and not so much from the breachways as they are from some of the rocky, hard spots along that stretch for the surf crowd. So definitely keep an eye on that. And then some of the bigger boat fish we're seeing are coming out of the Watch Hill reefs. They're heading out over toward Fishers, where you have an opportunity to break at least 40 pounds. And that's what I have for you guys in Rhode Island this week. Crossing over into Connecticut, I think one of the biggest stories that we're hearing out of Connecticut is just exotic species starting to show up in local catches. We've seen some spot in local catches. We've seen some mangrove snapper in local catches. And I forgot to mention back when we were talking about Martha's Vineyard, somebody apparently caught an albie this week. I have a feeling, just call it a hunch, that this person didn't actually land the fish, probably hooked into something that ran really hard and came off and just said that's had to have been an albie. But it's also not impossible. We have seen some early albie catches in that area and in Long Island Sound over the years. Most of the time these are caught on something that's fished down near the bottom, like a jig or a trolling, some kind of deep diving plug, or even a parachute jig. I remember one near TJ from Rock and Roll Charters had an albie early in the season on a parachute jig. So it's not impossible, but I wouldn't get too fired up about the albies. However, it is very interesting to see these Florida species showing up in Connecticut, and it may be a harbinger of things to come. Maybe we're going to see our next little push of cobia coming in. We usually get that little 1 month, 2 month shot at them here in the heat of the summer. So keep your eyes open for that. Going back to like normal species, normal local species, some of the best striped bass fishing we're seeing is around Fisher's Island and out in the Race. Good mix of sizes of fish there, some bigger fish, especially up against the island, and then also some decent fluking off the south side of Fishers as well. And the other thing we've been seeing in the Race over the last like 10 days is a new push of bigger bluefish. So we've seen some fish up to like 15 pounds out in the Race, which is a new class which we haven't seen yet this year in that area. So that's exciting to see. Getting up closer to the shoreline now, there's definitely good porgy fishing all around the mouth of the Thames River. There's been some striped bass in that area, nothing of great size, but there is opportunity to catch the keeper striper in that region. You get out along the reefs like Hatchets and out toward Black Point and stuff like that. And we're starting to see some better fluke now off the ends of those reefs. Now this is just the beginning of this. It's not like, you got to make a beeline out there and you're going to fill the boat with big fluke, but they are there. And it's a good area to fish for them because it's not heavily fished, because a lot of these fish are on short tracks of sandy bottom in between all these rocks and ledges and things like that. It makes them harder to target and makes it so you have a better shot at getting a bigger fish. If you'd rather fish for stripers though, that whole area also is looking good for striped bass. A lot of guys are saying it's the best they've seen this year in that region, especially with the dearth of bunker throughout June. Speaking of bunker, we do have bunker now up around the mouth of the Connecticut River. They've been there for at least 2 weeks now with pretty good consistency, which is made for better big bass fishing overall. And for a little bit more on that, let's toss it over now to Mike Roy from Real Cast Charters.
Hey, what's up everybody? For this week's report, striped bass are moving into their summer patterns. There's a lot of nice sized stripers. We've been catching everything from schoolie size to 40+ pound bass over the past week. Blues haven't showed up yet. I expect them probably to show up in a couple of weeks. We'll probably start seeing more big blues, but there have been some blues, just not real consistent yet. The bunker has really thickened up. There's a lot of bunker run right now, so should be easy to catch if you're looking for bait. And the black sea bass fishing, they are starting to transition into their summer patterns as well. Good luck.
Now let's take a jump inland and we'll talk to Rowan Lytle.
Hey everybody, so I'm not in Connecticut, as you can see. I am storm chasing again. I've got a tornado warned storm here on Lake Oneida in New York. Anyway, the Connecticut River is still fishing very well with the hot, muggy summer conditions. Again, focus your efforts in the evening and in the morning, and remember that if we do get some rain showers and thunderstorms, to fish near those tributary mouths and look for fish stacking up in there in the outflowing water.
Now we'll head out of the mouth of the river, take a quick sharp right, stop in at Westbrook, and we'll check in with Matt Stone at Black Hall Outfitters.
What's up everyone, Matt here from Black Hall Outfitters at Westbrook with this week's fishing report. Definitely seems to be transitioning into more of a summer bite right now. We're going to have those low light hours become increasingly productive as the water temperature goes up. Bunker has showed itself pretty heavily in quite a few places, so you've got a really good shot of netting or snagging some of that and dropping it down. You can either use a few ounces of weight to get it down to the bottom, or you can always free swim it, which is pretty explosive and really fun. Live eels are also going to work those same ways in kind of the same situations as well. In terms of our bottom fishing, sea bass is back open in Connecticut. We've had good reports of that starting right back up. Slow pitch jigs, bait rigs, things of that nature. Fluke is still good. It's still producing well, 40 feet plus. Those guys tend to come in a little bit shallower to particular places when the water gets warm here, now that we're kind of into mid-July-ish. So that's always good. And then porgies too, are really just kind of like anytime, anywhere type of thing right now, except night. So porgies have they're fully in, they're fully here. Clam, squid, sandworms, that kind of stuff. All that good stuff is working. Yeah, it's really good right now. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of different water to fish, inshore, reefs, a little further reaches if you want to take a trip and do some night fishing, throwing eels and stuff like that. All sorts of options out there. So soak it in. It is July. Great fishing out there, and be safe and have fun.
Now, something that kind of surprised me this week is more guys targeting summertime tog in Long Island Sound than I remember seeing maybe ever. It's not like it's been everybody, but guys are out there, they're getting some fish, they're getting some decent fish. These fish are not terribly deep. And we've even seen fish up to like 9 pounds taken this week, which is pretty cool to see. And a lot of the shops are catching on. So you can go into lots of these bait shops along this entire stretch and find crabs, which not every summer, we're not seeing that every summer. So that's been a really great thing to see, is this sort of newfound interest in togging during the summertime. And I think that's just another indication of just how popular blackfishing has become. Ever since the introduction of the blackfish jig, togging has become a big thing, and now we're extending it right into the summer, which is pretty cool to see. The other thing, sea bass is back open in Connecticut, so you can target them again. And this week should be a good week to get out there because they haven't been fished hard for a couple weeks now. And that's typically means that you're going to see some good fishing. So for my money, I'm going to fish the Central Sound. I'm going to go off the ends of those reefs, getting out more toward the New York line. You know, out in 80 feet of water, you got a good shot at getting a really nice sea bass. You got a good shot at finding some numbers. And, you know, if they don't show up, you're going to find some big scup. And it's also a good place to find some big striped bass. So Southwest, 6 Mile, out by the Spindle, out by Middle Ground, all the other ones I didn't mention. You know, any one of those deep ends of those reefs is a good place to check out for some good sea bass fishing in the heat of the summer. So definitely want to check that out. Heading further west, we are seeing some bunker around in the Western Sound too. Most of the giant bass have left the region now, but we're still seeing some good ones. Still seeing fish in the 20 to 35 pound class. And you know, finding a bunker school or fishing with some live or fresh bunker is a really great way to connect with some of these bigger fish. Still seeing some good fluke action on the New York side, and we're seeing that kind of trickling over to our side as well. And for a little bit more on all those fisheries and a few others, here's Max Finch from Fisherman's World.
Hey everyone, Max here from Fisherman's World with another local fishing report. This past week, the striped bass bite remains good in our area. It seems like first light, there's still a lot of topwater action. I've talked to multiple people. The first light bite, 11B, 28C, and the OB is pretty good and around the islands. I know Middle Ground still has a lot of quality fish. We've seen them to like 45 pounds this past week. Locally around the islands, we've seen them up to 30. Trunk and bunker is definitely the way to go. The shallow water bite remains good and on our deep water reefs. It seems like the bigger fish though are definitely being taken on our deep water reefs. There's been bluefish mixed in. If you really want to target bluefish, I would try mid-sound, trolling deep divers, or umbrellas on wire, bunker spoons. Those all are excellent ways to find the blues. And once you start getting into them, I start casting around topwater plugs. Sea bass reopened and they're still on our deep water wreck. So, you know, 60 foot or more, places like the Celtic wreck, the deeper parts of 28C, the deeper parts of Green's Ledge, and then even 11B on the slack tide, you can find some nice sea bass. If you have wreck anchors or spot lock, I would definitely suggest to get on a wreck south of the islands, and you know, traditional high-low rigs with clams, squid, bucktails tipped with gulp, and then they'll take a variety of jigs like flat falls, butterflies, diamond jigs, you name it. The fluke bite still remains strong. On the other side is still better than our side. Guys are shooting across, they're finding their limits. You know, it's tons of action. There's like, 20 shorts to one fluke, but there's tons of sand eels over there. And we're stocked up on sand eels, and bait seems to be outperforming gulp right now. On porgies, they're getting them from shore now. The bite remains really good from shore. This should only get better as the waters get warmer. Shallow water and deep water reefs are always good this time of year, all the way into August. Remember to bring clam chum to keep the porgies at your boat. Thanks and good luck.
That's what I have for you guys in the reports this week. Hopefully it's going to inspire you to get out there. I know it's been kind of tumultuous, windy and then calm and then hot and then chilly. It's been kind of one of those periods of time, but you know, oftentimes that makes for great fishing, and we're seeing that really across the region, especially if you're a striper fisherman. Whether you're in Maine, you're in Rhode Island, you're in Connecticut, you're in Mass, it doesn't matter. There's great striper fishing to be had somewhere, and I encourage you to get out there, catch some good fish, take some pictures, and send them in to me. If you're not a subscriber to The Fisherman, I highly recommend you head over to our website. That's thefisherman.com. You're going to get a full taste of what we offer there for free. We cover all the fishing from Delaware up to Maine, and we cover every angling discipline you can think of, whether you're a fly fisherman, a surf fisherman, an offshore guy, an inshore guy, paddleboard, kayak, doesn't matter. It's all covered. And it's $29.95 for a year subscription. You're going to get 12 paper magazines sent to your house. You're going to get 26 digital editions sent to your email from April to November. It's the best $30 you can spend in fishing, especially when you consider the fact that you can go online, read all the back issues, you can go online and read all the reports from other regions, and you get digital access to the other 2 editions. So it's like getting 3 magazines. For the price of one, it's $10 an edition, which is pretty good. But if you're still not interested after you check the website, at the very least, give us a like and subscribe here on YouTube and hit that little bell thing right there so you get a notification every time we post something new. I appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week.